Adanna's scream pierced the night air as she stumbled backward from the mirror, her hands trembling so violently she could barely catch herself against the mud wall of her mother's hut. The reflection staring back at her wasn't the flawless beauty the entire village of Omu had worshipped for 22 years. Instead, she saw skin cracked and peeling like drought-stricken earth, eyes that burned with a hollow, consuming darkness, and a mouth twisted into a sneer so cruel it made her stomach turn. The creature in the mirror wore her wrapper and her coral beads, but it was a monster, and according to the ancient glass, it was her. The mirror's surface rippled like disturbed water, and a voice emerged from its depths, neither male nor female, ancient and knowing. "This is who you truly are, daughter of Omu. This is the spirit that lives beneath the skin you show the world." Adanna's breath came in short, desperate gasps. This couldn't be real. She was Adanna, the Pride of Omu, the girl whose beauty had caused 3 neighboring villages to send marriage proposals before she'd reached 16. Men composed songs about her face. Women brought their daughters to look at her, hoping some of that beauty would transfer through observation alone. She was perfection made flesh, and everyone knew it. But the mirror knew something else. The village of Omu sat nestled in the hills of eastern Nigeria, famous throughout the region for its elaborate festivals, master weavers, and the artistry of its bronze casters. The people of Omu believed deeply in the power of ancestors, in the thin veil between the living and the spirit world, and in the idea that beauty, true beauty, came from within. They taught their children that physical appearance was a gift from the gods, but character was a gift you gave yourself through the choices you made each day. Adanna had learned these lessons as a child, sitting beside her mother, Obiageli, in their modest compound, listening to the old stories. But somewhere between childhood and womanhood, between her first admirer and her 100th, she'd forgotten that beauty was supposed to serve a purpose beyond itself. She'd become drunk on the attention, addicted to the way people's eyes widened when they saw her, intoxicated by the power her appearance gave her over others. Her mother had watched this transformation with growing dread. Obiageli remembered when Adanna had been kind, when she'd helped elderly Mama Ngozi carry water from the stream, when she'd shared her food with Chike, the orphan boy who sold oranges at the market. But that girl had disappeared, replaced by someone who wielded her beauty like a weapon, cutting down anyone who didn't worship at the altar of her perfection. Just last week, Obiageli had watched from their doorway as Adanna encountered Ifeoma, a plain-faced girl from the potter's compound, struggling to balance a heavy clay pot on her head. The pot had been wobbling dangerously, and Ifeoma had called out for help. Adanna had walked right past her, and when the pot crashed to the ground, shattering into pieces that represented 3 days of Ifeoma's work, Adanna had laughed. "Maybe if you were prettier, someone would have wanted to help you," she'd said, her voice carrying across the compound for everyone to hear. Obiageli had confronted her daughter that evening. "Your beauty will not last forever, Adanna, but the way you treat people, that creates marks that never fade." Adanna had rolled her eyes. "You're just jealous, Mama. You were never as beautiful as I am. You don't understand what it's like to be admired by everyone." The words had struck Obiageli like a physical blow, but she'd held her tongue. Instead, she'd gone to the back of their hut, where she kept the ancestral mirror wrapped in white cloth, hidden in a wooden box her grandmother had carved. The Mirror of Omu had been passed down the maternal line for 7 generations, and each woman who inherited it received the same warning. Never look into it unless you're prepared to see the absolute truth of who you are. Obiageli had looked into it once, at 18, and had seen things about herself that had taken years to correct. The mirror didn't lie, didn't flatter, didn't allow for self-deception. It showed you your spirit, the essence of who you'd become through your choices and actions. She'd planned to pass it to Adanna when her daughter turned 25, hoping that by then she would have matured enough to handle its revelations. But Adanna's cruelty was accelerating. Just yesterday, Obiageli had learned that her daughter had mocked Chike so viciously at the market that the boy had run away crying, abandoning his basket of fruits. When Ngozi, their elderly neighbor, had collapsed in her compound from exhaustion and heat, Adanna had stepped over her prone body rather than help her up, claiming she didn't want to dirty her wrapper. Something had to change. Obiageli had brought out the mirror that morning,